So welcome to the second panel of our session. And after listening to the wonderful panelists from the first panel, where we have heard a lot of the challenges and innovative solutions to transform the global vehicle fleet, we will now go into other sectors and to look at what are some innovative solutions and challenges that are facing heavy-duty road freight transport, aviation, and also maritime transport. So it is my pleasure to introduce you our diverse group of panelists today in this session, which will be focusing on building momentum for different transport sectors. So first we have Dr. Jari Kappala, who is the head of Quantitative Policy Analysis and Foresight, and also the head of the Secretary General's Office at the International Transport Forum. And next, we have Lauren Uptick from the World Economic Forum, who will also be joining us in this panel. And also on my right, we have Mark Hemme, who is the Vice President of Sustainability from Airbus. So welcome. And last but not least, we have Hanan Friedman, who is the founder and president of Trucknet. So very pleased to have you here with us today, and I am looking forward to your participation. So, so without further ado, we shall now begin this second session. And so I will first ask Jari a question, the first question. So Jari, we know that the International Transport Forum is an intergovernmental organization working with countries and also companies. So what is the role of the International Transport Forum in contributing to the transformation of the transport sector?
Thank you very much, Wei Xuan, and good day to everyone. First, I'd just like to say that we are a very proud member of the GFEI and also contributing to the Pathway Report and the excellent work done with the GFEI. And we're very keen to keep working with our partners to really help the governments, the ITF. We have 63 member governments as a member of ITF, but we also have a corporate partnership board that works with us on really navigating these challenges when we're delivering on cutting the greenhouse gas emissions. I think Rachel mentioned in the last panel the huge transition we have coming up and the challenge it faces to us, this rapid transition. And it really creates a lot of policy challenges as well in terms of job transition, promoting resource efficiency, sustainable supply chains, etc., etc. I think the scale of transformation is daunting, I think, to many of those who are working on transportation sector. Not only on the private vehicle side, but specifically perhaps on the hard-to-abate sectors, the maritime, aviation, and road freight. 40% of all transport emissions come from the hard-to-abate sectors today, and these sectors are going to grow in terms of the volumes of transport. Freight will double by 2050, according to our research, aviation triple. And these are numbers taking already into account the impacts of COVID and the recovery that we'll see after that. So what we've done at the ITF, we already after COP21 created a Decarbonizing Transport initiative, trying to support our member governments, but also all the other partners by providing evidence on effective mitigation measures. We have launched an online tool, which you can all go have a look at it. It includes over 70 measures, the information on mitigation measures, their effectiveness, their costs, and really the catalog of effective mitigation measures, what we call Transport Climate Action Directory. We feel that this type of evidence-based information is crucial so that we cannot go and say anymore, well, we don't know what to do. We know what needs to be done. We know what can be done, how effective the measures are. We need to now move from ambition to action. And then specifically on the hard-to-abate sectors, we've just created a new project with what we call DT Implement. This is an implementation action for transport decarbonization for hard-to-abate sectors. This is supported by Horizon 2020, European Commission Fund. What we want to do there is not only provide a platform for discussion of all the stakeholders, but really speed up the transformation to decarbonize transport. And we want to learn from the best experiences in the sector, the best solutions, and also look at the challenges the sectors are facing in decarbonizing. really at the heart of it, the objective is to scale up the innovative solutions urgently and move from ambition to action. We've reviewed all the NDCs that have been put forward by member countries. We're very pleased to see over 98, I think 98% of them mention transport. 80% have mentioned include measures for transportation sector, but only 16% of those have actually targets for transport. So we need to move to that area where we actually have proper action on climate change on transport. We're proud of this project because it brings together more than 30 countries now, all the major players globally, but also in industry with several of the companies, other stakeholders, institutions. So we really think that within the next 2 years, we can come up with the pathways that help us to set the hard-to-abate sectors on a right pathway, also on the short and medium term, not only looking at by 2050, but what needs to happen now for us to get there when we need to be there.
Thank you, Jari. So it is indeed true that we do now need to urgently transform commitments to actions, and I do believe that is why we're all here today at COP26. And so moving on to Lauren, so I know that at the World Economic Forum, there have also been many initiatives trying to look at how can we actually address the growing emissions, CO2 emissions from heavy-duty freight, aviation, and maritime transport. So what are some synergies that you have observed through your work at the World Economic Forum across all these three sectors that you would be able to share with us today?
Thank you, Weishuan. So the World Economic Forum is the international organization for public-private cooperation. And so we really work as the ITF does with governments, but importantly with corporate partners. And we as the forum have communities from private investors to banking and financial institutions to aviation, automotive, etc., and shipping. And so one of the approaches that we've taken is to make sure that we're leveraging that enormous community we have and taking a value chain approach to solving these challenges. And it's been really fruitful to do so across any of these hard-to-abate sectors, where we're working not only with in the case of aviation, carriers and OEMs and fuel producers, but also with demand-side actors, with financiers, with governments, so that we can attack all the different levers at the same time and make sure that we're de-risking this transformation for everyone at the same time. So we've seen that approach has worked very well across the different sectors. We're also seeing a real opportunity with demand-side actors. Big corporations, many of which you've seen participating here last week and this week, have to address their Scope 3 emissions. Many are signing up for science-based targets, and to address their Scope 3 emissions, often that is in their supply chain in terms of either air travel or freight. And so there is opportunity to have them take leadership and share the cost of the transition that we need. And so we're seeing buyers alliances and demand commitments. In aviation, we saw a commitment to 10% SAF by 2030, demonstrating that there is will and appetite and willingness to share the cost. So on the demand side, I think we're seeing that across sectors. On the other side is on financing. In each of these sectors, we recognize the need for more innovative financing. And we're noticing that there's quite a gap in between the financiers themselves and industry players and the corporates that are seeking financing. And so importantly, we're trying to bridge that gap, but it does require that financiers are having much closer relationships with their corporate clients on what transition looks like and how do they support them through that transition and come up with different types of financing mechanisms that are new and maybe a little bit more risky, but is an imperative for us to actually see the infrastructure come to bear that we need for new energy sources. And then, of course, the enabling policies, and I think Jari's already mentioned this, but it's critical that governments are putting in place policies that support these transitions. And we do need some level of standardization in the fact that for corporates, the more that they can rely on similar type policies or similar types of approaches by governments, the easier it will be for them to scale in their investments and their production. And maybe lastly, there's a real opportunity here when we're talking about countries for the democratization of those energy industries. We no longer have to, in a transition to sustainable aviation fuels or power to X, power to liquid fuels in shipping or aviation, we're able to look at finding sources that are outside of traditional energy countries or oil-rich countries. And there's an opportunity really to democratize that supply and create economic development and energy security in a broader range of countries. And so that we see across the sectors too as a synergy.
Thank you very much. And I think many of these points that you have mentioned also echo some of the panelists from the previous panels as well. And how can we actually capture the synergies, I think will be a critical question moving forward. And so now I think we would like to hear from the private sector's point of view. And so Mark, what are your views from the Airbus perspective on the decarbonization of the air transport sector?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for ITF to organizing this panel. I have to say that we are working as Airbus with both ITF and the WEF on the decarbonization of air transport, so I'm very pleased to be here to give some views on what happens in aviation. The first thing I want to say is that now the whole aviation industry is committed to carbon neutrality in 2050. Indeed, during the last IATA assembly, all the airlines members of this association have taken this commitment to be net zero in 2050. And this has been followed by a declaration of ATAG with the same objective. And ATAG is regrouping airlines, associations, but also manufacturers of aircraft, air traffic services, and airports. So the whole aviation industry is really committed to this net zero objective in 2050. As Airbus, we want to pioneer this transformation according to 4 pillars. The first pillar is technology. The second pillar is sustainable aviation fuel. The third pillar is offsetting, and the last one is better operation. Of course, as Airbus, we want first to work on technologies. Our last generation of aircraft is reducing CO2 emission by 20 to 25%. In 30 years, we have reduced the emission of our aircraft by 50%. Today, modern aircraft is emitting 60 grams of CO2 per passenger kilometer, which is, I think, better than a lot of cars. But we want to go further. We want to be the first manufacturers to deliver a really zero-emission aircraft by 2035. This is why we are working today on 3 concepts of aircraft, all propelled by hydrogen, between 100 and 200 passengers and between 1,000 and 2,000 nautical miles. Why hydrogen? As you know, hydrogen is one of the 5 priorities of this COP. And hydrogen has a lot of potential for aviation. You can directly burn hydrogen in engine. You can use hydrogen for fuel cell for electrical aircraft, and you can also combine hydrogen with CO2 capture to produce a synthetic fuel that can fly on all current aircraft with a very strong abatement of CO2 emission. So this is extremely promising toward this objective of net zero, not only in 2050 as we start now, and especially with the objective of flying net zero flying zero emission in 2035. The second pillar is sustainable aviation fuel. The aircraft we are selling now will fly for 20, 30 years, and we have to find a solution for them. Our aircraft are already capable for 50% SAF uptake. We are working to deliver aircraft by 2030 that will be able to uptake 100% SAF, and we've flown last week with a 319 Neo with 100% SAF. We've flown a few months ago with a 350, 100% SAF. And SAF can reduce on the global life cycle emission by 80%. So this is another very important pillar. The third pillar is better operation. We can still improve the ATM services, and we are working in Europe in a very important research program, CESAR, to improve ATM. But today, by the way, we are flying to Montreal from France with two 350 following each other and using the vertex of the first aircraft. We can reduce the fuel burn and so the CO2 emission by 5%. This is another solution. And finally, offsetting. Today, offsetting is still necessary before reaching the new generation of aircraft that will be zero emission. And you probably know that there is a global scheme, CORSIA, set up by ICAO to reduce and offset the emission of the global aviation worldwide. So putting the four pillars together, we do believe that we can achieve a fully decarbonized aviation. We can fly zero emission quite soon, and so allow next generation to keep on flying in perfect respect of the planet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think the four pillars that you have mentioned will probably apply to other transport subsectors as well, and perhaps in the road freight sector as well, because of the technology and the innovative solutions, and also the better operation side of the sector, and to manage how we move in a more efficient way. And so, Hanan, you started Trucknet when you've realized that there was an urgent need for cross-company optimization for the managers of heavy-duty fleet vehicles. So could you tell us how your technology has assisted transport and logistics companies?
Thank you. 20 years of experience in the field of logistics has shown me the conventional in-house fleet management of transport and logistics company is not sustainable. We know that empty miles on our road are the main type of waste from freight. About 30% of trucks all over the world run empty with not cargo. Our goal is to reduce this empty mile by making smart match between cargo and available capacity in trucks. Supply chain operation use a huge amount of resources, and they are responsible for high percent of global GHG emission. They are looking for solutions. One of my goals is to increase the scope of business strategy to include a sharing economy model of cooperation between companies. Saving resources will lead to reducing the carbon footprint. One of the many components of Trucknet technology covers the next level for fleet management, cross-company optimization. We are here to assist them to achieve a better efficiency and profitability. Trucknet big data cloud-based platform uses artificial intelligence, business intelligence, and machine learning algorithm. It automatically identifies the location of cargo and trucks, making a smart match and saving the need for more empty mile. Here in Glasgow, we are all looking for solutions to transform business as usual. We must find a way to change behavior if we are really intend to stop the rise in global GHG emission from the transport sector. Trucknet solution will be a stepping stone on the way to the commitment for net zero emission by 2050. On the way, it can be less congestion, air pollution, and traffic accident.
Thank you very much. So there are definitely many co-benefits that will be very available from your technology as well, not just to reduce CO2 emissions. And so we know that the targets are there. We do need to achieve net zero by 2050. It's a very challenging target and very ambitious in different countries. And so just going back to Jari, moving forward, what do you think are the key challenges that we still need to overcome in the three hard-to-abate transport sectors?
I'm sure there are many, as we've heard already here. I think in the previous panel, we heard some of them. I think the uncertainty is definitely one key challenge that I see in the hard-to-abate sector. We have a rapid transition, adoption of the zero-emission vehicles that we need for example, for road freight. But at the same time, we still have this rapidly evolving technological environment, which makes it very difficult to see which ones of the technological solutions is going to be the most effective one and the cost-effective one. And this uncertainty, I think, delays also the much-needed investment in the infrastructure for these technologies. So that is definitely one area where I would point out. The other one is the commercial viability of alternative solutions. And I think Lou Fulton mentioned this earlier in his introduction about one of the key policy measures needed. What I mean by that is that the zero carbon, for example, in shipping sites, zero carbon ships and zero carbon fuels are still more expensive than conventional ships and fuels. So the fossil fuel subsidies and negative externalities are not really incorporated in the price of conventional shipping on the shipping side and in many of the other transport sector. So we are really thinking we need to move to the carbon pricing, we need to put the market-based mechanisms there and work on the fuel standards for the heavy-duty vehicle, hard-to-abate sector. That said, there are success stories as well. I think just to give one on the shipping side, because there's no one representing necessarily shipping industry here in the panel right now. It's the current rollout of electric ferries in Norway. I think they have 42 ferries that are working electrically right now and another 40 plus coming in the pipeline. And this is partly because of the subsidy programs for electric charging at the ports and also for electric ships. So there are solutions, there are possibilities, and again, one of the things we really want to look at in our new project on the hard-to-abate sectors is to identify the pathways and the path dependencies as well that each of these sectors face in order to get to the right pathway right away and overcome the challenges and obstacles we face today.
Thank you. So we do need to develop multiple pathways moving forward. And I will now give the floor to Lauren to perhaps share with us some of the pathway development that has been going on in the aviation sector. So how is the aviation sector transitioning to a zero carbon future?
Thank you. And I think Mark has really established that sort of four-pillar approach, and we completely agree with that. What's valuable in the aviation sector is that we know, for example, that sustainable aviation fuels exist today. They are certified, and they're a sure part of that roadmap. We can expect that they may even account for as much as 75% of fuel demand in 2050. There are, of course, multiple pathways and scenarios, but for long-haul flying, they will be required then. So they're not just an interim solution, and they exist today. So we at the Clean Skies for Tomorrow Coalition, which is run by the World Economic Forum and has partners such as Airbus, are really looking at how to unlock the different pieces that are keeping us from scaling sustainable aviation fuel and what's kept us from doing that until now. And some of that is the certainty, is the demand, but really these types of commitments like the aviation sector committing to net zero by 2050 are crucial, because we've been stuck in a bit of a chicken and egg with sustainable aviation fuels, where they are too expensive, and so there hasn't been certainty of demand, and therefore fuel providers, whether small alternative fuel providers or the large oil and gas majors, haven't yet made the investments into scaling the production. But we've seen that's changing, and it's really exciting to see a lot of announcements and investments into plants and policies taking shape in different regions of the world. So we're working on all of those different levers. I think from a demand side, as I said, the net zero commitment from the aviation industry as a whole is really important. We've got an interim ambition statement around 10% SAF by 2030 to create even more certainty that there are folks willing to buy it as both corporate customers and carriers. And so on the demand side, I think we're really shaping that up. We're seeing investments from the fuel providers. We do need to unlock financing appropriately. We're talking 10% SAF of global jet fuel demand could be as much as $250 billion of investment. We're looking at perhaps 300 SAF plants to reach that target. And that's not a small change, right? And we have to find ways of making sure that financiers are comfortable and are able to, those projects are bankable. So really a key part that we need to work on. We're also working on something called a SAF certificate program. There's, again, in line with this growing demand, there needs to be an accountable, legitimate way of determining whether folks, how and how much of their Scope 3 emissions they are addressing through their contributions to sustainable aviation fuels. So we're working with a number of different partners to build out those types of accounting frameworks, and then making sure that they're in full alignment with GHG protocols and SBTI. So there's many different things happening, especially in the sustainable aviation fuel space, but there are definitely credible pathways for aviation to transform, as Mark has said, and it's possible to, by 2050, be flying net zero. I think importantly, and I truly believe in this as someone in the aviation industry, there are benefits that are derived through aviation, economic benefits that are crucial to economies across the globe. And we need to make sure that also then that the energy supply becomes a economic driver in some of those countries too, so that we are able to allow many countries who haven't yet fully reaped the benefits of aviation to continue to do so well beyond 2050.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your insights. And just building on this sector's challenges from aviation, Mark, I would like to go back to you again. So what do you think could still be done from a private sector's point of view to enhance this momentum on the decarbonization roadmap for aviation?
Yes, as I said before, the momentum exists in the aviation industry, as the whole aviation industry is committed, and there is a global recognition of these 4 pillars to achieve a fully decarbonized aviation. Now, as explained by Lorraine, we need the momentum also with the energy producers, with the investors. Regarding the energy, the challenge we have is not specific to aviation or even to transport. We need a decarbonized energy, and this is the basis of this transformation towards a decarbonized economy and decarbonized transport. And here we need really a global policy to push forward the decarbonization of energy. And we are not only partners of ITF and the WEF, but we are partners of many consortium, and to push in this direction of really producing much more and go faster, probably on decarbonized energy, decarbonized electricity, because globally we have to switch from oil to usage of electricity, and also to produce new fuels, SAF, hydrogen, and so on. So it's a global issue, and we want to be part of it, of course, and create a momentum on sustainable aviation fuel, as I said, on production of hydrogen. Hydrogen will not be only for aviation, it would be for trucks, for ships, for steel industry, aluminium, and so on. So we need a global shift of the production of energy. And we need also the support of policymakers. I think, Lauren, you mentioned it. And this is moving. There will be a very important ICAO assembly next year to decide on a global policy. And we have some regional initiative. If we take the example of sustainable aviation fuel, there is a mandate in preparation in Europe from 2 to 5 to 20 up to 63%. So it will be a mandate. In the US, there is another approach that is very interesting. It's tax credit to reduce upfront cost and so stimulate both demand and production to introduce more and more sustainable aviation fuel in our air transport. So globally it's moving. We probably have to go further, to go faster, but I think everything is on the table to achieve this decarbonization of air transport. And as I said, not only net zero, but as far as we are concerned, zero emission aircraft and so zero emission fly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So you've made a really valuable point about making this global shift, and it's not just a problem for developed countries, but also for developing countries, and there are also many challenges that we will still need to overcome in order to continue to build on this momentum. And now going back to the road freight sector again, Hanan, I would like to ask you to share an example of a success story on the reduction of empty trucks from roads, and that you have seen a significant reduction in emissions through your work at Trucknet.
When I established Trucknet 3 years ago, I have in mind building a unique ecosystem for transport company to use a sharing economy model. My idea was to reduce the very large number of empty miles traveled every year. Today, about 500,000 trucks connect to Trucknet automatic platform. This is a clear sign that the market wants solution for the wasted empty miles. In 2020, we conducted a joint pilot with one of our clients, the Renault Group, in order to check the effectiveness of our system. In general, they use traditional approach of in-house fleet management, which tender, which work order. Renault connected to Trucknet platform that know how to find contractors by near cargo based off location, saving miles, promotes sustainability. We looked at 371 bid for transport from Renault. Out of those proposals, 268 trips were won by the contractors in Trucknet platform. Matches were made, so available trucks could collect cargo near the location. This saved Renault the need to pay the contractor to travel empty to pick up the cargo. The pilot proved the connection to Trucknet platform led to 17% saving on the weekly cost of trips. This is resulting in saving 115,000 euro in 2 weeks for this trip. Successful of 68%. A similar pilot project with Chronopost that showed that we can save 20% saving of the cost of the trip. This optimistic result demonstrates the ability to our big data platform supporting by AI to save transportation costs for logistic company in optimal way. I would like to emphasize that this to the fact that the Trucknet platform just shipping order for contractor based of geographic location closest to the cargo, they are able to split price, save cost, and keep trucks at full capacity. For sure, that way we can reduce the footprint. And if we look about the future, that everybody speak about 2050 zero emission, there is stepping stone and it takes time, and we have to take care to be more efficiency in that way. And I believe that the market understand that, and the industry want the solution. And I think that we are now in a good point here in Glasgow, and I think that the market go on, and we have to go with the wind. Thank you.
Thank you. So we shall go with the wind and look at some of the solutions that we can actually bring with us forward to 2050. We have heard today from our amazing panelists from different sectors, sharing their insights on various transport subsectors, and also hearing the benefits of technology and how technology could actually provide co-benefits. So not just reducing CO2 emissions, but also cost savings, perhaps even reduce local air pollution, and as Hanan has mentioned, even improve road safety. And we do know that we, as the transport sector, has to manage services and operations on a more efficient level across all modes as well. So asset sharing, and also ensuring that we are utilizing our resources at their maximum capacity, and most efficiently as well. So we are actually running out of time. So this is the end of our event, but before I close this event, I also just want to point out that the GFEI Zero Pathway Report was launched today in our first panel. Please do feel free to download this report. It will actually show more insights on the different pathways by region, how countries could actually create a more efficient transition to net zero. And I would also like to remind everyone that tomorrow is Transport Day at COP26. So there are many, many activities and events planned from 9 till 5 tomorrow. So the UK COP presidency's events will be found on the official COP presidency's program, which I'm sure you are familiar with by now. And ITF is also working very closely with different stakeholders and the UNFCCC, including the FI Foundation and GFEI, to organize a Marrakesh Partnership Transport Action event tomorrow in Action Room 1, where we will continue a lot of these discussions. We'll look at electrification, again, in a more in-depth manner, looking at developing countries. How can we actually ensure a just transition and leaving no one behind as we move forward to 2050, looking at some of the equity issues and also resilience. How can we ensure the resiliency of the transport sector coupled with COVID-19 recovery? So please do join us tomorrow in the Transport Action event, which will start at 1 o'clock in Action Room 1. So with that, I thank all our panelists and our audience who have stayed with us today, both in person and virtual. So thank you very much.